Hi guys, welcome into today's video. I'm Zara, thank you for joining me. Today I am going to be taking you through all of my favorite reads of 2025 so far. Before we begin, I have created a Goodreads account very recently, so please go follow me on there and let's be friends. I do want to quickly clarify that all of these books that I'm going to be including are series and all of these are fantasy books. So yeah, I just quickly wanted to inform you guys. Anyways, let's begin! Okie dokie, starting off with the first book that I have. Ta-da! The Cruel Prince. I have been on a fantasy rampage, like I said, this year. This is the best book of series that I have ever read that encapsulate fairy tale vibes and just childhood nostalgia overall. So this series is called the Falk of Air series and it consists of 3 books. So the first book is The Cruel Prince, the second book is The Wicked King, and then the third book in the series is The Queen of Nothing. So these books are actually young adult fantasy, and even though they are young adult, these books are genuinely the best fiction that I have ever read. The writing is amazing, it's incredible, the character development, the overall world of Elfhame. The story follows Jude Duarte, that is a mortal girl, and she is dragged into the land of Elfhame, which is the fairyland, and she basically has to prove her self-worth because everybody hates her. Her arch nemesis is actually Carden, who is the youngest prince in Elfhame, and he is in her class. So she has to deal with him on a daily basis. You see their story unravel, but their story isn't actually romance, it's much more political. The key themes of this book, I would say, are power and politics, for sure, betrayal and manipulation, enemies to lovers, and I am heavily implying enemies to lovers because a lot of books and a lot of people have accredited books where they state enemies to lovers, but they actually aren't enemies to lovers. So I do want to clarify, this book is heavily on enemies to lovers. I would also say mortal versus immortal aspects and dynamics. Lastly, I would say found strength, empowerment, and family and friendship. Overall, I would rate these series of books a 10 out of 10. And I know that's very daring of me to say, but I genuinely have loved every single individual book and I have had nothing bad to say. The writing is incredible. Hello. The thing is that a lot of young adult fantasy books have been very cringy to me. Holly Black writes in such a phenomenal way where it doesn't come across as cringy. It comes across as nostalgic and fun and very childish, but in a nostalgic way, not in a very cringy way, if you get what I mean. A negative of this book for many people would be that it is kind of a slow building process within the first book, The Cruel Prince. It does take a while for the plot to kick in, and I get that can be quite off-putting for people. I feel like if you don't give these books a try, you're missing out on so much story and so much potential and just such an amazing kind of world. Yeah, I would definitely recommend people to read these books. Heads up to anyone who's expecting this to be a heavily based romantasy kind of book. It's not heavily based. There are romance aspects within this book, which I love, and the little crumbs, and that's the thing that I love. There's a lot of yearning in this book. I quickly wanted to add on, there is an additional book which is called How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories. I actually haven't read this yet, but this is an aftermath of one of the main characters' stories, which is about Carden, the prince, and it's just basically a deep dive into his backstory. So yeah, I haven't read this, but I'm very eager to read this. I am looking forward to it because a lot of people have loved this book. So yeah, I love these series. These are my babies. Okay, the next series that I wanted to get into is a series that people either heavily hate and dislike, or people either really love. And I am one of those people who loves these books with my whole heart. The first time I came across these books were on audiobooks. So the first book that I actually listened to was the whole entire audiobook. And I did actually listen to all of these books on audiobooks, and then I proceeded to buy the books and basically read them myself. So the next series is no other than Powerless! Guys, the character who voice acts as Kai Azza, My dream date. So, in this kingdom of Ilya, society is divided between elites, people who are born with magical powers, and the ordinaries, who have none. Ordinaries are viewed as weak and expendable. In some areas, their very existence is outlawed, so they're basically killed off. Enter Peyton Gray, who is a powerless girl living in hiding as a thief in the slums of the city, and she actually is an ordinary, faking being an elite to avoid execution. She keeps a low profile until she accidentally saves the life of Kai Azza, who is the prince of Ilya, second in line to the throne, and who is the future enforcer. So he's basically like the future killer, okay, who's gonna exterminate all of these ordinaries. So she bumps into like the one person who she's not supposed to bump into. The key themes of this book, I would definitely say, are hidden identity and faking power. I would say forbidden love, extreme tension and yearning, found family and rebellion, huge on the rebellion, oppression, power, injustice, very similar to The Cruel Prince, but a lot more heavily focusing on romance. So Powerless is the first book in the series. The second book is Reckless. Now, controversial opinion. I actually really loved Reckless. Why is this controversial? Because this is the least liked book in the whole series. A lot of people hated this book. I loved this book. This is my favorite book of the series. Reckless focuses on the dynamic of Kai and Peyton and everything that they've been through, and there's just so much yearning in this book and so much character building and tension, which I love. I read this book in a day. That's how much I loved it. The third book in this franchise is called Fearless, which is the last book to this series. I ended up creating a video where I react to Fearless, so if you want to check that out, go check that out. I also went to the Fearless book event where I got to see the author, and it was incredible. I loved every moment of it, and it was so special. Let me show you something. I ended up getting a special edition of the book, and look what I have here. Are you actually kidding me? I have a signed copy from the author. This, in my opinion, is the best romantasy series of books that I have loved. However, I will say there is a lot of controversy around these books. Like I said, people either really love these books or hate these books. And that is because a lot of people have said that these books have been plagiarized by Red Queen and The Hunger Games. I haven't read either of them, so I can't sit here and say if that's true or not, but I will say that I do love these books so much. I had such a huge fascination towards these characters, Pei and Kai and Kit and Adina. It was just so emotional seeing this kind of series come to an end. I think the author did an incredible job. I would rate these books an 8.5 out of 10. And the reason to that is because the last book, which is Fearless, it kind of disappointed me. It wasn't something that I was expecting. I was expecting it to go out with a bang, but I feel like it's very hard to do that, especially when this is a young adult fantasy kind of series and there's not a lot of risks that you can take. There were certain moments within this book that were very childish to me. Like I said, I'm gonna make a clear distinction. When I was talking about The Cruel Prince, there's also very childish moments in that book. However, the way that the author writes these moments is very different because it comes across as nostalgic rather than cringy. I don't think the author does a very good job in portraying this in Fearless, so that's why it came across as cringy. It very heavily depends on how a person writes something and how it can come across. So that's my personal takeaway as to why I've rated this an 8.5 out of 10. Yeah, I love these books. I genuinely really hold these books close to my heart and they mean a lot to me. So yeah. Okie dokie, moving on to the next series of books that I have loved this year is The Serpent and the Wings of Night. This series consists of 2 books, so it's only a duet. The plot of this story and the characters is amazing. There's so much depth that has gone into this kind of aspect. This book is actually based on vampires, which is incredible because I have never actually read a book that involves vampires before. It basically follows the story of Azrael, who is a human girl, and she is adopted and raised by Vincent, who is the most powerful vampire king of the Court of Night, which is basically, you know, the vampire court. Despite being a human in a world dominated by very dangerous vampire houses, Azrael is trained to be deadly, both to survive and to one day win the Kajari, a brutal tournament held by the goddess Naxia. I forgot how you pronounce the name. I'm sorry, forgive me, I'm dyslexic. Where basically the competitors are forced to fight one another and the last man standing wins, and whatever they ask for, the goddess gifts them. To survive this tournament, Azrael reluctantly allies herself with Rain, a mysterious and cunning vampire from the rival house. Yeah, so basically she comes across this mysterious man, Rain, and she basically teams up with him. It's very cool, and there's so many plot twists within this book. The ending of this book had me rolling out of my bed. I kid you not. It was such a risky ending, and I did not think that that would happen, which is mind-blowing. My favorite character in this series is Vincent. I think he's so cool. He's so epic. I would say the key themes of this book are found family versus blood family, survival in a brutal political world. A lot of politics is involved yet again, a lot of rivalry because there's different houses, and Vincent basically has a lot of enemies and Azrael has to deal with the consequences of that. I would also say forbidden love, identity, and transformation for sure. Azrael goes through a lot, and I love Azrael's character. I can't actually say that I finished this series because dun dun dun, I actually haven't read the second book. I don't know how this ends. I don't know if I will love this series, but the reason as to why I didn't finish this book was because Fearless came out, and then I just got swept away with Fearless. Based on what I've read of the second book so far, I'm so close to the end. I have loved it. There's so much character development, there's so much politics involved, and the way that Azrael has carried herself within this series is just phenomenal. I would rate the first book a 9 out of 10. It's very solid. The ending to the first book, it had me rolling out of my bed. I was not expecting that to happen, so yeah, you should definitely read this series. And I mean, it is kind of hypocritical of me because I haven't finished reading this series, so don't kill me. But yeah, I have an inkling that I'm gonna love this series, and I do so far. Hi guys, it's me from the future. I'm back. I couldn't leave this kind of segment on a cliffhanger, and it would be wrong of me to include this series if I haven't actually read this and finished this series. So your girl is back, and she has finished the entire book. The Ashes and the Stalker's King. I have written a review on this book, so if you want to go check out my review, go check that out. It was a good book, and I feel like it's a good wrap up to the story. However, I feel like Azrael was like the focal point in the first book. However, in the second book, I don't know what the fuck happens to her, but there is like a huge character assassination where she just becomes incredibly not unlikable, but there's no kind of like charisma left. I feel like it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. Like, it was okay. I don't know. I feel like reading other people's comments has kind of hindered my view on this book, because when I finished reading this book, I actually really liked it. And then I started going on Goodreads and then started reading all the reviews. And then I was like, now that they do point that out, it does make sense. Like, there are kind of like, this doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense. However, I love the book personally. I really like the series, and I think it was a great job that she just made it into a duet. So yeah, I feel like it was a good wrap up, and I like the series. Since I've read this series now, I would rate it, I'd say a 7 out of 10. It's not bad, but it's not good. You know what I mean? There's worse. Quicksilver.
Boom. Roasted.
Now, as you can see, I have no books left. But alas, wait, hold on. I have one series of books left. I have been listening to this series of books on audiobooks, and I know for certain people, audiobooks are very like, I don't know. I don't want to get into that topic. But what I do want to get into is the next series of books that I want to talk about. So these books I can't actually show you because I have no physical copy, but I have a physical copy up here, okay, for sure. The series that I want to talk about is the Gods and Monsters series. So this series series consists of 7 books in total, however 3 are out. The 4th one is coming out this year in October, and I'm incredibly excited for it. The first book of the series is the Book of Azrael. This series is so underrated, and it's just so mind-blowing because I love this series to death. The second book is called The Throne of Broken Gods, and then the third book that I recently finished listening to is The Dawn of the Cursed Queen, which I mentioned in my previous vlog, so if you want to go check that out, go check that out. It centers around Diana, who's the main protagonist. She's a female character and she's basically ageless, which I love. I love her. She's my favorite female protagonist. The story centers on Diana, an immortal woman who's lived for thousands of years and is fearlessly protective of a magical book that holds an unimaginable amount of power. The Book of Azrael. She's been in hiding, trying to avoid the divine and monstrous beings who want to use the book to win an ancient war. She then crosses paths with Lucifer, a dark, powerful god-like being. He's been hunting for the book for centuries, but instead of taking it by force, he makes a deal with Diana to work together to stop an even greater evil rising in the world. For me, the world building is the best thing about this book. The second thing that I would say is the character development. There's so many characters and they each have such a great purpose, and each of them have such great character development. They are written so well, and there's so much background and history to each and every single one of them, which I love. Yeah, I also want to quickly mention that the audiobook voice actor is a woman, and she carries the entire series. Like I've said, there's so much world building, there's so many characters, and the amount of times that she has voice acted for all these different characters, male and female, she has done a phenomenal job. She's just impeccable. It's impeccable. Okay, I love her. I love her, and I love the author. Thank you to the author for creating these books. I really mean this from the bottom of my heart. I love these books so much, and I can't wait for the next installment to come out, and I can't wait to see how these books and this series ends. I would definitely say the key themes in this series are power and ambition. I would say fated mates. I just want to add plot twists. You are never going to expect where the ending and where the plot is going to go. That's how incredible this series is. I would say found family, self-discovery, and self-empowerment for sure. Immortality, grief, and redemption. And with that being said, I would rate this series so far, even though it's not ended, and I'm so happy that it's not ended, an 8.9 out of 10. And the reason why is because the last book that I listened to, there was just so much smut, to the point where it was just really kind of discouraging me not to even like carry on listening to the book. So that's something that I really hated, and it hurts me because the story is so good. So good, and it wants me wanting to know what happens next. So every time there was like a smut scene, I was like, girl, not this again. But for certain people that might be appealing, so if that's your thing, and get into it, because girl, there's a lot of smut. In the first book, there's like hardly none. The second book, some, and then the third book, a lot. Like a lot. Another thing that I would say that the writing isn't that great. The writing isn't like Holly Black level, like the Cruel Prince level, which is okay. Like, I still love the books. So yeah, those are the only 2 negative things that I have to say in regards to this series. With that being said, that is everything and all of the series of books that I have read this year that have been my favorite. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know what your favorite series have been that I haven't mentioned. If you like this video, please subscribe, and please like and comment and all of that stuff. Oh, and please make sure to go follow me on Goodreads. It would mean a lot to me. And yeah, thank you for watching. Bye.